Hello, this is Julian Treasure. Delighted to be with you at the Quantum Leap Business Show. Let me move myself down here, out of the way, and use some slides behind me to introduce myself first of all, because I think it's only polite. I'm the founder of a company called The Sound Agency, which helps organizations around the world to make effective and productive sound in their branding, in their marketing, in every aspect of business actually, including now in workspaces, where sound is very difficult. Noise is the number one problem, and we've developed some beautiful sound called Mood Sonic, which helps both well-being and productivity in workspaces. I wrote a book called Sound Business, which is about every aspect of using sound in business, and I've had the honor of standing 5 times on the TED stage. If any of you have not come across TED, there's a great gift for you, TED.com. And my talks on the TED stage have been seen an amazing 120 million times now, going up all the time. It's frightening. I wrote a second book called How to Be Heard, which is about these important skills of speaking and listening, communicating with sound, which is what some of my TED Talks are about, and it's what we're going to focus on today. So let's start by doing something together which you may not have done for a while. Let's listen. Now that is you consciously listening, which is not something we do all the time, and yet it's a very, very important thing to do. This talk has been titled How to Speak So That People Want to Listen. Actually, I want to let you into a little secret here. The secret is that in order to be a great speaker, you need to be a great listener. And that is a skill that's so hidden and so ignored by so many people. That's really the angle I want to take today into the skill of being a great speaker. Listening underpins so many things in our lives. How can you learn without listening, or lead people if you don't listen to them and understand them? Listening is how we innovate, standing on the shoulders of giants, of course, and how we persuade. Any great salesperson will tell you the most important part of the sales conversation is not the speaking, it's the listening. Listening is fundamental to our relationships, and of course, conscious listening always creates understanding, and we'll come back a little later to consider how important that is in the world. We have 4 ways of communicating. Here they are, presented with equal weight: reading, writing, speaking, listening. 2 for the ears, 2 for the eyes, 2 send, 2 receive. And presented here, as I said, with equal weight, but that's not how we teach them, is it? Actually, it's much more like this. We barely teach speaking at all. This incredible voice, the instrument that we're all given, is taken for granted, and even more so, listening, hardly taught at all in schools. It's a scandal if a child leaves school unable to read or write, and yet millions are leaving school every year, never having been taught, never having realized these things are skills, not capabilities. So let's zoom in on speaking and listening, and just start by challenging an assumption that many people have. You may have it, and it's a really big mistake which undermines communication. That assumption is that speaking and listening relate like this. It's a straight line. I speak, you listen. That's all there is to it. Wrong. Actually, speaking and listening are in a circular relationship, because the way I speak affects the way you listen affects the way I speak, and many other dynamics are going on in that circular relationship, which goes round and round and round inside of a context, which very often is undermining our communication. And I have a TED talk about designing with the ears, a plea to architects to start making spaces that sound as good as they look. Very often we have poor acoustics, lots of noise, other challenges which get in the way. Now, those things, speaking, listening, and indeed the context, have a profound effect on 3 very important things in your life: your happiness, your effectiveness, and your well-being. Vital things, all profoundly affected by the sound around you. Unfortunately, much of it is not very pleasant. We stand on street corners bellowing over noise like this and pretending that it doesn't exist, and we get into the habit of suppressing our consciousness of sound, which leaves us in a relationship with sound a little bit like this. And yet sound affects us profoundly in 4 really important ways, and I'm going to share those with you very briefly before we start to talk about listening and speaking. Sorry about that. That's a little shot of cortisol. I'm demonstrating the first way sound affects you, which is physiologically. It changes your breathing, your heart rate, your hormone secretions, even your brain waves. Let me calm you down again if that gave you a little jolt. This is gentle surf, a very good sound for sleeping to, associated with being peaceful, restful, and a sound that's going to calm your heart rate down if I leave it on and possibly send you to sleep. So let's move on. Second way sound affects you is psychologically. Changes your feelings. At my company, the Sound Agency, we use sound to do that a great deal. Music, of course, is the most obvious example. This piece of music isn't going to make you feel happy, is it? But there are plenty of other sounds that change our feelings, and we deploy biophilic sound a great deal, the sound of nature. For example, birdsong, which makes people feel secure, because we've learned over hundreds of thousands of years that when the birds are happily singing like this, it's normally safe. Also time to be awake, so it's a great sound to work to. Third way sound affects you is cognitively.
If you're listening to
you
this
can't
version
understand
of me,
two
you're on
people
the wrong
talking
track.
at the same time,
Try listening to
or in
the
this
other
case, one person talking twice. We can't do that, which is why if you're working in an office that sounds like this, particularly if you can hear one person's conversation or two people's conversation behind you, you have no earlids, the effect can be devastating. Noise is the number one problem in open plan offices. If you're trying to concentrate, it's really hard with what's called the irrelevant sound effect. And that's where Mood Sonic comes in, our new biophilic sound, which is designed to enhance well-being and at the same time cut out those unwanted conversations and increase your productivity. Moodsonic.com. Check it out. It's wonderful. Now installed in India, Australia, America, all over the world with major companies. The fourth way sound affects you is behaviourally. Of course it does. With all that other stuff going on, we will at the simplest move away from unpleasant sound if we can. So if I put this on and left it on for the next 15 minutes or so, I don't think you'd be sitting here. You'd go and do something else. Of course you would. It's more subtle than that, though. Sound can change what we choose to buy. For example, it's affecting you all the time. Here's a study which was done by some academics in a supermarket with two displays of wine, French wine, German wine, identical visual displays. All they did was to alternate the music. On day one, a little bit of this. And on day two, a little bit of that. So what happened on the French music days? French wine outsold German wine 5 bottles to 1. May not be too surprising. It does tend to sell more on the world stage. But on the German music days, German wine outsold French wine by 2 bottles to 1. Now that is a huge shift in purchasing behaviour, and interestingly, the people surveyed claimed they hadn't even noticed the music. This is not, German music, therefore I should buy German wine. It's unconscious, and this is happening to you all the time. Sound is powerful. Listening is important. It is, in fact, a skill, not a capability. Hearing is a capability. You're born with that. Listening is a skill. You can master it, develop it, or you can ignore it and not be very good at it. Sadly, in the modern world, I think it's a dying skill. Many reasons for that, and I'm going to mention just 2 of them here. One of them may be surprising to you. Here it is. Technology. Supposed to bring us together, of course, but in fact, is it doing that? Where's the listening in this? I hope you've never sent that, and I hope you've never received it, but it does get sent, it does get received, and where's the listening in that conversation? Well, it's not even a conversation, is it? And of course, there's the deluge of written communication that we're all experiencing, and FOMO, the fear of missing out, causing us to be checking a device every 5 seconds, or even doing email late at night in bed. Whatever those habits are that we get into of being always on, Scott Peck said, you can't truly listen to another human being and do anything else at the same time. Well, we're always doing something else at the same time, aren't we? So it's very difficult to listen these days. And there's another human tendency, which I think is also being exacerbated by technology, and that is really damaging our listening. What's that? Being right. Being right is a very powerful driver for many people, and unfortunately the internet is really enhancing that desire. We don't go out to seek challenges to our views, do we? We go out to seek affirmation. And unfortunately, it's creating silos and polarization and puts us on a slippery slope, I think, of being right, which starts off with caricaturing other people and moves down to out-and-out hatred of people who have different views or are different from us. That is a dangerous slope to be on. Now, let's also consider listening in organizations. Many of you will work in an organization already or are planning to start one or run one even. Well, unfortunately, if you put a bunch of people who don't listen very well into an organization, what do you get? You get an organization that does not listen very well, and they are abject organizations at listening. This was a big survey, and this is what it found. Something like 80% of the effort, energy, and resources of organizations goes into outbound communication. If you say corporate communication, what do you think of immediately? Advertising, marketing, PR, outbound, not listening. And that's true internally as well. How many 360-degree reviews ask the question, how good is this person at listening? Now, what is listening? Making meaning from sound. You select parts of what you can hear and then you interpret them. You make meaning from them. And the first and most important thing to understand about listening, and this can be transformational in your communication, is that your listening is unique. Nobody listens like you do. And that is a huge mistake which I see being made all over the world. The assumption that everybody listens like I do. They don't. And once you get that, and you get that listening is unique to each human being and changes over time as well, that makes communication so much more powerful. Why is everybody's listening unique? Because we listen through a set of filters. Here they are, the culture you're born into, whether that's national, regional, local, familial, clan, whatever it might be, the kind of culture that you're born into and the language you learn to speak affects how you listen. The values, attitudes, and beliefs that you accrete along the way from your parents, role models, teachers, friends, whoever. The assumptions and expectations and intentions you may have going on at any time, assumptions about what people are thinking or how they relate to you, and intentions for a given situation, expectations for what might happen and what you want to happen. These all colour your listening, and they change over time. And of course, emotions. Ever noticed it's hard to listen when you're upset? Or by the other, if you turn that around the other way, if you want to calm somebody down when they're upset, really listen to them. What this means is that your listening creates your reality. Now, everybody's listening is different, and I want to give you a very, very powerful tip, which is at the heart of a lot of my work on powerful speaking. If everybody's listening is different, it means that you always speak into a listening that's unique, whether it's one person, 100, or 1,000. So even if you're speaking to a big group like this, they bring their own individual listenings there. They are fixed at this moment and different from how they would have been. Maybe the listening at 9 a.m. is different from the listening just before or just after lunch, for example, in an audience. So you need to ask yourself a question in order to speak accurately and powerfully. If you always speak into the listening, this is the question to ask. What's the listening I'm speaking into? Get into the habit of asking that question, and you will hit the bullseye far more often and not miss the target, as we often do if we just ignore that question and make assumptions about the listening. There are 4 C's behind powerful listening, and great communication really relies on these. First of all, consciousness that you're actually doing something when you're listening. It's an action, it's work, it's effort. It can be mastered, it takes practice, and it takes effort to make it work. Secondly, commitment. Because it's work, you need to set aside the time and really focus in order to make it work effectively. Thirdly, compassion. Seeking to understand other people, even if you disagree with them. Barack Obama said, "I will listen to you, especially if we disagree." And not many people take that view. We tend to listen much more to people we agree with. And finally, curiosity, ferocious curiosity. Treat everybody as an opportunity to learn, and your life will be that much richer. You may learn how not to do something, but it will always be possible to learn. Now, I want to give you an exercise to improve your speaking and listening skills in conversation. This is a very potent exercise. Many people have told me it's helped them enormously. It's called rasa, which is the Sanskrit word for juice, but it here is an acronym standing for receive, appreciate, summarize, ask. So receive means pay attention to the person who is speaking. If you want to be received powerfully, listen effectively. I said the way you listen affects the way I speak affects the way you listen. Also, the way you listen affects the way somebody else listens. So if you pay them the compliment of giving them your full attention, you're much more likely to get that compliment repaid with attention when you're speaking. So receive, face them, eye contact, not trying to leave the room or doing something else at the same time. Appreciate the little noises and physical movements we make and say which oil the conversation. Oh, really? Ooh. Little head bobs, eyebrow raises, smiles, and so forth. So appreciate is showing that you're paying attention. Summarize is the word so, a very, very powerful word. Closing doors in the long corridor of a conversation. So what we've agreed is this. Now we can move on to that. So summarizing what somebody has said is a great way of locking down that you've understood them, checking that you got it right, and moving on to the next thing. And finally, ask questions. Open questions, why, what, when, which, where, who, and so forth, which don't permit the answer yes or no. And people often say to me, how do I don't feel heard, people don't listen to me, I can't get them to listen. Well, it's a great way to move a conversation into areas that you feel more comfortable in. If somebody's talking about something, you can ask a question like, how does that relate to this thing that I do know something about? And move the conversation to more friendly territory. Still be interesting to them because there's an overlap you're exploring there. It's a very good way of getting people to listen to you. So rasa, receive, appreciate, summarize, ask. Try that on and I think you'll find your conversations go far better both ways, listening and speaking. Well, guys, I think never have we needed listening more in the world than we do right now. And just imagine a world where we are speaking consciously into ears that are consciously listening. There's only one result of that, and that is understanding. And we need that in the world. Not only that, but of course, if you can master these skills, what's at stake is your happiness, your effectiveness, and your well-being. And that, the stakes don't get any higher than that. If you want to find out more about all of this stuff, well, you can view my TED Talks. They're all at TED.com. That's absolutely free. There are 5 TED Talks and I think 9 TEDx talks that I've done as well. So you'll find plenty of me if you search for my name and TED. Of course, there's my book, How to Be Heard, which is available, and that's all about these skills of speaking and listening. Do stop by juliantreasure.com if you'd like to go deeper. At the ultimate, there's my huge course, which is 9 chapters, over 7 hours of video with dozens of downloads, 67 individual lessons going very, very deep into every aspect of powerful speaking and conscious listening and designing spaces around you which are healthy and effective. Even if you don't want to undertake the course, do pop by juliantreasure.com because there's lots of other things there, including there's a free video which takes my number, I think 7 of all time TED Talk, the one that's called How to Speak So That People Want to Listen, and pulls it apart to discover and reveal why it has been so successful. And that's a 20-minute video with me and top US speaker coach Neil Gordon really analysing and dissecting that talk. And we reveal lots of secrets of powerful talking. So if you ever speak in public or you want to, that is a great resource. Free on my website. Do enjoy. Just want to say thank you very much, guys, for your attention today. I hope you have a wonderful time at this amazing conference. And I look forward to seeing you at juliantreasure.com. Thanks.